Hey, welcome back to Paul's Outdoor Academy. I appreciate you joining me for another one of my quick tip videos. And in this one today, I'm going to be showing you what I did to try to address an issue with the ignition on this boat. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get you closer to this key and the ignition, because that's mostly what we're going to be talking about. So let's adjust that camera. Okay, I've got the camera repositioned, and what I want to do is try to explain the symptom that I'm having. When I get in my boat and I crank the motor, that's the neutral position, and you go any further and it starts to engage the starter on the motor, then once the motor starts, you let it go and it is supposed to snap back into this neutral position. Well, my key is beginning to stick in the cranking position, and when I let it go, I don't realize it, but it's actually staying partially engaged into the starter. And there's been a time or two where I've taken off down the lake, and as I start to slow down with the throttle, when I get almost into neutral with the remote throttle control, the motor dies. And I don't realize what's exactly happening, and so when I reach back for the remote throttle and I put it in neutral, the motor restarts on its own. And I could not figure that out. I've done a lot of diagnostics trying to figure that out. But what it ended up being is my ignition key is actually sticking in the crank position. And so because of the neutral safety switch, which will only let you start your boat if it's in neutral, as soon as I got the shifter back to the neutral position, it would allow the starter to re-engage. So I don't want you to have to deal with the problems I've had. I've had the remote control completely out and taken apart. I've looked for switches to replace in that and everything else. And I'll make another video of that some other day. So for right now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the switch out and I'm going to look at it and see if there's anything obvious about it that needs to be repaired. So the first thing that I'm going to do on my boat specifically, this is a 2019 Mercury 115 horsepower ProXS 4-stroke, and I can't tell you that this applies to every boat out there, but it probably applies to a lot of boats. But my ignition is not hardwired in. It's part of a larger wiring harness for this boat. So when I reach underneath here, I can disconnect that. And I'm not going to worry about trying to show you that, because you will definitely see it. It's the only thing behind the key that has a big wire sticking out of it, and it disconnects. It's just a quick disconnect. So I've got that disconnected. I'm going to remove the key, take that out, and then you're going to have to turn this nut. Now don't worry about trying to hold this still at the same time. This actually is shaped to where the console will hold it in place for you. So I'm just going to turn that. Got that off. This should just kind of push out of the way and fall out of there. And if you've got it disconnected, you can take the entire ignition switch out, just like that. Okay, and so now that I've got this out and I know that it's not going to start the motor, let's put the key in it. I've got the key back in it. And now I can turn it all the way, because I want you to see what I'm talking about. On a normal ignition, if you turn this, that puts it in neutral, and if you continue to turn it like that, that would engage the starter in your engine. Well, you typically just let this go, and as you saw, when I let it go, it bounced back into that neutral position. It didn't stay over here. But lately, when I've been out on the lake several times, it has actually stuck in this position. And that's what we do not want. And so I've got the switch out. I'm going to go look up that part number. I'm going to see how much it would cost to replace this. But there is something else that I'm going to try now that I've got this off. I see a hole on the side of this right here. And I hope that comes across on the camera okay. But there's a hole. And I can look down in that. And as I am turning the key, I can see the entire shaft rotating inside, and I can actually see the key going in. This would be an ideal location to try to put some kind of lubricant in there to see if maybe it's just really dry on the inside. So let's get a can of lubricant and let's put just a little bit in there and let's see what that does. Okay, so I've gotten some white lithium grease here, and it fits perfectly down in that hole, if you look at that. And away from the camera, I'm going to shoot this in here. Okay, now, so that is coming out, that came out around the key. Wipe some of that off. You can see the white, little bits of white sticking around the edges of that. So that alone I mean, it is clicking back into the neutral position very quickly. I'm going to put it back in the boat, and I want to see what kind of impact that's going to have on this. Okay, so I want to cover one other thing. When I took the quick disconnect apart, this gasket fell out of it and fell on the carpet. And if that happens to you, I don't want you to wonder where it goes and be afraid that you've torn something up. It would be very tempting, because it fits in here so well, to take it and put it inside this like that. That is not where that goes. There is a place on the other part of the connector under the console, and I'm going to try to get the camera and show that to you. Okay, so this is the connector. It goes on the back side, and it has this indentation all the way around it. Just before it reaches that orange section, there's an indentation, and that's where we're going to put that seal. So let's see if we can get that on. I'm going to have to set the camera down for just a second. And that went back on very well. As you can see now, it's inside that indented area that I was talking about. I'm going to try to show you really quickly how I'm going to reconnect that. It's going to be hard for me to hold the camera and do that. But I have the quick connect in both hands. Hopefully you can see that at least a little bit. And there's only one way that it can go, so don't worry about plugging it in wrong. It will not go together if you put this in backwards. But when you put it in the correct way, this is just going to slide together and snap. So you heard the click. I know it's together. The seal is in there and all is well. Okay, and now that that's connected, you're just simply going to take that switch and feed it through from the bottom, and you're going to pull that through just like this. Once I have this pulled through, you need to do a quick double check and make sure that it's in the correct position, because you could install this upside down. It probably doesn't really matter, but the way that it came from the factory for me was the tumbler was installed with this little indentation on the bottom side. There's a little bitty split part of the tumbler in the middle, and it goes down on the bottom. So once you have that there, you can just hold this in place long enough to get this started. You can hold it from underneath if you need to, or you can hold it just here on the side like I'm doing. And I'm just going to get that started. It's plastic. I'm not going to cross thread it, that's for sure. And then I'm just going to tighten this back up. And it wasn't on there extremely tight to start with. So that's got it pretty well right there. And then, just to show you that we've got that in correctly, I'm going to take the Quicksilver key and put it in there. And there it goes. And we don't want to do that. But obviously turning the key too far is going to result in the motor trying to start. But now that I have that in, I can see that that's working really well. And let's just give that a try and see if that's going to work for us. Alright, so that's going to wrap up another one of my quick tip series videos on the ignition of my boat. And I hope that you're able to use this to diagnose your own issue, and even better yet, to fix your issue if it should occur to you like it did to me. So thank you very much for joining, and I appreciate all 560 plus subscribers that I have right now. I think that's wonderful. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel, and let me know what kind of content you want to see in the comments down below. And I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe and turn on notifications so you always know when I've posted a new video. God bless. Good luck out on the water.